Hi everyone, Ryan here with Fight Game Analysis, and today we are going to be talking about Conor McGregor versus Manny Pacquiao. If you've been enjoying the content, please go ahead and click on the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate your support. Alright, so I'm just like everybody else. I constantly hear the rumors coming from Conor McGregor, right? He's retired, he's not retired. He's fighting this guy, he's fighting that guy. He wants to fight in the spring, he's going to fight in the fall. What's going on with this and that? It's a lot, right? Once somebody reaches that pinnacle of the sport, once they get that much popularity, it seems to be one of the things that you kind of see, right? It's one of the ways that they keep themselves in the media, keep people talking about them, just kind of stay out there. So when I hear them say things, when I hear rumors about them, I take them with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's going to end up being true, sometimes it's not. So I try not to get too worked up about it, try not to get too excited about potential fights, and just actually wait until you see things that are officially announced. All right, so fast forward. All of a sudden, Conor McGregor lets out a series of tweets. Got some screenshots between him and Dana White talking about fights that he wanted to set up in 2020. This was all pre-COVID. Wanted to fight 3 times or something like that and end the year with a rematch against Khabib. All right, sounds pretty legitimate. I get it. He threw in there, he was talking about Diego Sanchez. Let's not give that any credibility. Kind of funny the way he tried to throw that in there. Obviously, like a look good fight for him. And I love Diego Sanchez, but let's be honest with each other. He is not at Conor McGregor's level. Particularly at this point in his career, he would just be going in there to get his head knocked off. So I'm glad that that fight isn't even being entertained by the boss man. But at the very end, none of that, all that, it is what it is. But at the very end of those tweets, he lets out, hey, none of it really matters anyways. It's all water under the bridge. I'm going to be fighting Manny Pacquiao in the Middle East. Now, that's a big announcement. That's huge. Right? And if he'd have said that 5 years ago, I don't think anybody would have gave it much credibility. But as big as he is, and the fact that he already fought Floyd Mayweather, showing that the UFC was willing to make this kind of cross-promotional, cross-sport type event, man, that means a lot. So I'm thinking again, like, is this legit? Is this really going to happen? And then we get the announcement from Manny Pacquiao's camp. I believe it was somebody in his camp. And they confirmed it. They made it official. Yeah, Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor, this thing's going to happen. Ooh, now this is an interesting fight. You know, on the one hand, I'm a little surprised it happened. But on the other hand, really at the end of the day, I'm not. And the reason for that is because we all know, being around the fight business, money talks. And this is going to be a huge fight. This is going to generate massive amounts of money for both fighters. In my opinion, it's by far the biggest payday that both fighters can make. Now, I've seen a lot, just in the few times that this fight's gotten, just in the short period of time that this fight has been announced, I've already seen a lot of opinions come out about it on what people think is going to happen. So, let's take a quick look here. You think about it, Conor McGregor. Now, he's been inactive a lot recently. Being inactive is not good for a fighter. Fighters typically do not perform as well when they're inactive. Okay? Now, there's exceptions to the rule, but typically that's kind of how things go. And the reason for that is because when you're inactive, it messes with your timing. Timing is so important in a fight. Timing's huge. It could not be bigger. Particularly, and it matters more based off of the type of style that you use, but no matter what, it's really big. And when your timing's off, everything else is going to be off. And when you're not in the ring, when you're not fighting regularly, when you're not kind of involved in it, it's so easy for your timing to be off. Particularly at the highest levels, where a half second can mean everything. Now, like I said, that doesn't apply 100% of the time. The first example that comes to my mind is Dominic Cruz. The man said he doesn't believe in ring rust, and I've watched him. It doesn't seem to affect him either. So it is all mental. Obviously, it's not physically being anything different or changed about you. Ring rust is a mental thing, but it's so prevalent that everybody says that it's real. It affects so many people. It affects people in MMA. It affects people in boxing. It's been around for a very long time, and it makes sense why it happens. So let's keep that in mind, number one, right? Just as a first thought. Conor McGregor has not been an active fighter. When he has come back and fought, he seemed to be fine, but just something to mention. He's the bigger, stronger, longer guy in this fight. I mean, Manny Pacquiao, he turned pro at, I want to say it was 119 pounds. I mean, I get it. He was only 16 years old, but he is a naturally much smaller guy. He's only like 5'5". I mean, his glory days, when he was coming up the ranks, when he was knocking out Eric Morales, David Diaz. When he was doing those things, those were at lighter weights, 126, 130, 135. He was already starting to move up. At this point, he was already a multiple champion. He was already a multiple-time world champion. He had already been fighting the best competition in the world. You know, a lot of people don't remember those fights. He wasn't quite as big. I mean, he was really starting to pick up over here in America. But, you know, the one that really broke him through was already at a higher weight. That's when he fought Oscar De La Hoya. And he moved up there and just blew him out and smoked him. Then a little while after that, he gets the Cotto fight. Right? Then he's fighting, you know, Antonio Margarito and Floyd Mayweather and stuff like that. But all those fights are happening at like 147 pounds. And he was already super bulked up. It's hard for him to keep that weight on. That's not his natural weight. If you take out all the supplements that he uses, all the weight training, man, he's going to drop down to like 140. He could cut weight and make 135. Easy. Okay? Conor McGregor, when he used to make 145, he used to look like he was knocking on death's door. And he only was able to do that because he was young. I don't even think he could make 145 right now. So one of the thoughts I have is, where's this fight going to take place, right? 150, 155? You know, McGregor's been fighting at 170. His body's starting to become more naturally accustomed to the heavier weight, carrying more muscle. So it'll be interesting to see where this happens. No matter where it happens, even if somehow McGregor does agree to 147 and cuts down, he's still going to be the much bigger man. So you're looking at Manny. He's a smaller, shorter guy with the shorter reach. Something to keep in mind. But one of the things you got to remember about McGregor is, all that being said, the time off, everything that he's got going on with the whiskey and all that kind of stuff, he's still a fighter. Deep in his heart, he is still a fighter. We hear the Mystic Mac predictions, and he runs his mouth talking crazy, got great jokes, knows how to promote a fight for sure. But he's still a fighter, deep in his heart. That's still the guy who went out there and smoked all those dudes with that left hand. Just laid them out. He's still got legit power. Okay? And here's the thing. He's got great timing. And I know I said that that's what suffers as far as ring rust is concerned and being out of the ring, and that's true. But his suffering, his part in going down, it's coming from the highest peaks. His timing is one of the things that sets him apart and makes him a great fighter. Right? The combination punching, the footwork, the distance control, all that is very good. There's a lot of things that go into making him who he is. But he loves to counterpunch, and he's got great timing. Now, Manny, on the other hand, man, I've been watching Manny Pacquiao fight for a long time, and I love watching him fight. Okay? One of my favorite fights of all time was his rematch against Juan Marquez. Just beautiful to watch. Probably watched it 50 times. But something that we got to keep in mind here is this Manny, right now today, this isn't the Manny of 2009. This is the Manny of 2020. Okay, he's already on like his third generation of guys that he's fighting. I mean, like I said, he was out there fighting Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera, Juan Manuel Marquez. I mean, he's been fighting for a long time. He's going to be 42 years old by the time this fight happens. And in his last fight, he just beat a young guy, Keith Thurman. Knocked him down in the first round and ended up winning the fight by decision. All right, so Manny's been doing this for a long time. And one of the things that happens when you have athletes who have been in the sport for a very long time is their game has to evolve. So when Manny Pacquiao was building his name up, building his resume, just blowing through people, beating legends, he fought differently than he fights today. Back then, the way he used to fight, the saying that I always used to use is, Manny Pacquiao fights like he's double parked in front of the casino. Right? I mean, he goes in there, he used to throw sometimes upwards of 90 to 100 punches a round. Just overwhelming guys, pouring it on, just smoking them. And he was throwing those punches hard. Throwing those left hands in there crisp and just letting them fly. Manny was never a perfect fighter. Manny was never technically sound. He did a lot of things very well, okay? But he was able to cover up all the flaws he had with the speed and the aggression. And just the pressure and the volume. Right? Everybody's always known that Manny has flaws in his game. Right? Here's the perfect one. The easiest that you'll be able to see. He gets off balance. When he throws that left hand, he'll actually take his back foot off the ground. He completely overextends himself a lot of times because he puts so much into it. But the reason he's been able to compete at the highest level and do it so much is because he covers that up with everything else he does. So even though people know he's doing it, they can't take advantage of it. They're not able to go in there and make him pay. As a general rule. Now let's look here. Who were the two guys that gave Manny Pacquiao the most trouble throughout his career? Even beat him. Boom. First one, Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather's a counterpuncher. super high fight IQ. Took away Manny's aggression by counterpunching him. Made Manny have a different game. Also, it was later in Manny's career, but still, the game plan that he implemented would have been the same, whether he'd have fought him in 2008 or 2018. Wouldn't matter. And the other guy, Juan Marquez. Juan Marquez is a master counterpuncher, master at timing. Okay, no one's going to go out there and call him a great athlete, talk about how explosive he is, how fast he is, how light on his feet, and how he moves and everything. That's not what took him to the very peak of the sport. Juan Marquez is a master boxer, a master counterpuncher with beautiful timing. And that's why he was able to give Manny so much trouble. Because timing beats speed. So even though Manny was faster and more explosive and he had more power and everything else, it doesn't matter if they fought 100 times. Marquez would always give him trouble. Marquez would always give him hell. Because that's what happens when you're a great counterpuncher against a guy like that. They feed off each other beautifully. Right? Styles make fights. You've just got Manny Pacquiao constantly coming forward, being aggressive, throwing punches, and Juan Marquez backing up a half step at a time, just whipping off crisp counters with beautiful timing. Okay? So timing and guys who are beautiful counterpunchers have always given Manny trouble throughout his career. Guys like Shane Mosley or Antonio Margarito or Ricky Hatton or any of those guys, like he's always going to be able to handle them. He's always going to be able to do much better against guys who have those types of styles. And they've got different styles, don't get me wrong, but they're not counterpunchers. They don't have great timing like that. But Conor McGregor does. Conor McGregor does. So it's interesting. You know, on top of it, like I was saying, that Conor McGregor's the taller, longer fighter. It's easier to counter when you're taller and longer. Conor feels very comfortable standing in the pocket, leaning back a little bit, even taking a little half step back and firing off his shots, firing off the right hand and the left hand that'll go right over the top of Manny's right shoulder, right? Because he's the shorter guy. He's going to have to jump in, and he's not as explosive as he used to be. He's older. Not as fast as he used to be. Doesn't pull the trigger quite as much. Because of two reasons. Like I was saying, this game evolved. It's really for two reasons when you really sit down and think about it. Number one, it's the same reason that gets everybody. Father Time. Father Time is undefeated, and he always will be. Everybody gets older. Everybody slows down. Everybody's game changes a little bit. Manny Pacquiao doesn't fight like he's double parked in front of the casino anymore. He slowed up his game. Work rate is slowed way down. He's probably more around like 50 punches a round. Things are much different. And number two, and he said this in interviews, another reason that he changed up his game and started being less aggressive was because of that knockout that he suffered in the fourth fight against Juan Marquez, right? That face plant, nasty looking knockout. Like, that's a tough one. That'll make guys rethink things and change stuff up. Am I saying Manny's going to win? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying Conor McGregor is going to take this one? No, I'm not saying that either. Right? This is just kind of my first thoughts on the thing, just kind of thinking about it initially when I hear the fight announced, thinking about kind of how each guy's style is matched up, what's going to happen with the back and forth. I mean, Manny may come in there and blitz him and get his punches off. McGregor's counterpunching could be super sharp and crisp that night. But each of these guys have styles and tendencies, and they use techniques that are going to match up in a very interesting way this fight. And I think the people that are underestimating Conor McGregor's chances in this one need to rethink about the way that he fights and what he's shown in his past fights. And guys who are just thinking Conor McGregor's got power and he's going to lay Manny Pacquiao out with this left hand, they need to understand that Manny Pacquiao has been the smaller, shorter guy his whole career. First ballot Hall of Famer, no questions asked. So clearly it hasn't stopped him from seeing success before. So let me know what you guys think. Who's going to come out on top this one? Are you interested in the fact that Conor McGregor's crossing over again and even jumping into boxing? Or are you just kind of fed up with the whole thing altogether? And you'd much rather see him stick in the octagon and fight somebody else? Let me know what you think.